Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine. Haribol, and very nice to meet you on this unusual forum, Zoom. And thank you all for giving us opportunity to associate with you all. So we were told to speak on the subject of work, family, spirituality, balance. So actually the key here is the word balance, because our human nature is such that we tend to get passionate into one thing, and sometimes to the exclusion of the others. So, for instance, as sometimes those of us who are working outside, and then we may get very enamored by the possibility of promotions and getting some success, and then that really excludes our attention to spirituality as well as to family. And sometimes we get so much caught up in our spiritual activities in the temple and so on, then we actually neglect our other activities. And then if we also spend so much time only just with the family and newborn children, and it's such a nice cozy environment, and then we may neglect the other areas. So either way, the key is balance. And why it is a key to the success? Because we all come from different backgrounds. Every one of us have different responsibilities, our own different attachments, different fears, different attractions. So Krishna says that on every level there are dualities. This is the basic fact of life. There'll be always heat and cold. There's honor, dishonor, day and night. There will be, and also it is always ever changing. They're constantly in motion. So nothing is stable. It may seem stable at one level, but in actuality, it is in a subtle level, things are changing. So that makes it even more difficult. So the example is given that just like, when the monsoons are coming, we are anyway going to face them in another couple of weeks. There's nothing we can do to stop it. But we have an opportunity to take cognizance of that, and then say if we need to make a roof, or if we need to make any provisions, how we react to it, we can do it. So therefore, the key to our success is not to try to change the environment in the difficulties of work, responsibilities of all these things, but the key is to try to change ourselves, our consciousness, our approach to the responses to the various day-to-day challenges that they come on. And then thereby, collectively and individually, when we change, then it can make an impact, a positive impact on the environment. So this is a fact which we may all acknowledge, but is very difficult to remember that most of the time we need to change, while we are always looking to see why the situation can't change, why my wife or my child or my parents, why can't they adjust? So therefore, it is most of our energy goes into, in a sense, playing the victim card. And at this stage, I would just like to take a digression to first, let's compare our definitions of what we are talking of. When we talk of spirituality, the immediate thought is that we are talking of chanting, bead bag, temple, Janmashtami fund collection, book distribution, right? I mean, direct services, we associate that with the temple. So we put that, then we say family means spending time with the family, spouse, children, parents, or in-laws. Then household work, school efforts for the children. Then paying the bills, fixing things around the house, right? So then we associate that with family. And then we talk of work, we mean anything where we are having our profession, occupation. Either we are earning a salary, or if we have our own business, then we are earning our profits. So in a sense, that is true at one level. But as we earlier said that, the consciousness of what we are doing, why we are doing, it becomes so important that actually this differentiation is not really that differentiation. Let me give examples, like say Srila Prabhupada. Would we say that Prabhupada was Prabhupada was filling his day, 22 hours a day. He was chanting, yes, but he was also negotiating for land, and he was really negotiating hard for various projects to set up temples, and then he had court cases to handle. So these were, you can say, these were work related. So was he working? Was he spiritual? So and then he was taking care of his the disciples, constantly defending them, nurturing them. So that was his family. So you can see that actually there is a blur, because the consciousness was that we all are having activity. There is activity in work, there's activity in spirituality, there's activity in family. So instead of completely differentiating, if our consciousness is that we are ultimately trying to do what we can to help to serve Krishna, and if you have a motivation that we are pleasing our Guru Maharaj, our devotees, that motivation remains the same, then we would be very happy to, whatever we are doing, we will be able to we transcend all the challenges that are there. Maybe we don't like the environment where we are working. We may also have problems at home, perhaps, that's a discomfort, etc. Because we are all humans, we have challenges. But if we don't lose sight of that, then at least there is an anchor for us to know that everything surrounds around that. Otherwise, our ego takes over, and then we have a problem of not knowing that we are affected because of our ego. So we may have a tilak, we may have our bead bag, we are in the temple, we may look every inch a devotee, but that doesn't mean the ego is gone. So so it's either I or Krishna. So if Krishna can bring in, so when we have problems, we really need to see from the eye of the Shastra, which we may have difficulty in translating. Then we look at from the eye of the Guru or the senior Vaishnavas, because we can trust those whom we can trust. Their viewpoint will also help us. So Prabhupada gave an example, very famous example, constantly about the microphone, making the same point that is a microphone. When he was speaking on giving lectures, he said, "Is this material or is it spiritual?" So it's been made of material things, but because he's using it for preaching, it is spiritual. So similarly, our activities can be material or spiritual depending on our consciousness. Similarly, the knife in the surgeon's hand or the knife in the thief's hand makes all the difference. What is the consciousness, what they're going to use it for? So therefore, similarly, Arjun was fighting. No, if Arjun was killing people, it is said that the day he finally killed Jayadratha, he killed 2 million people in one day. Now, he must have put all his concentration, efforts, everything. And we would say that he was not spiritual that day. And only when he returned home, he became spiritual. No, I mean, so the thing is, our judgment of spiritual work, and to some extent, that also adds to our challenge. So while we do have a problem of balancing, we'll come to that in a short time. But I'm just making the point that oftentimes we may be under pressure from ourselves and also from others. Like, for instance, we are not able to go to spend, let's say we have small children and we have a festival, let's say Sharat Purnima, and because next day early morning school. So you attend only for half an hour. One parent will just come for half an hour, and then because the children have to sleep by 9, and the next morning they have to get up early. So it may seem as if they're not so interested. Another one will stay till 11 o'clock. I mean, another family may stay till 11. But then the children are small, and if they're sleepy in school and they have difficulty. So we can't judge and say that, well, because someone spent 4 hours, that's more than half an hour, even though both are in the temple. The consciousness was that it is to help the children. The children take precedence over, and Krishna in my heart knows what my desire is. So in such a situation, are we selfish for ourselves, or are we doing it for the sake of others? So these questions are very subtle. So we have to concentrate only, as we said earlier, changing ourselves, looking at our consciousness, and we'll find happiness in helping others. So if we are, if we can dovetail our contentment or happiness, along with the others, then it becomes, not only, I would say, um, easy to tolerate, but also we start getting pleasure, getting satisfaction, because then expectations also become lower. So concentrating on what we do becomes the theme, and then we are juggling with various things. Sometimes, and it's not that all the time the pressure of work, spirituality, and family will coincide. It's not that they'll peak every time on the same day. Sometimes it does peak, but oftentimes, like on weekends, for instance, work pressure is minimal, maybe not there, and then we have a matter between family and similarly early morning, maybe more time to ourselves, or late nights. So it's really a question of sometimes where we have that question. So if we have a consciousness which is relatively trying its best to link it to Krishna, and how to do that is because that's where the association satsang comes. That's where our spiritual whatever sadhana, our reading or hearing comes. So actually, many times we may say, I've read the Bhagavatam, or I've done this or done that. We may do that, but what are we doing if at the end of the day we have not taken the essence by seeing the examples of others, and trying what we need to bring into our lives from all this is that how avatar after avatar, sadhu after sadhu, right through the whole Bhagavatam, the examples are constantly about how selflessly the great personalities have been, and how they find happiness, whether the emperors like Ambrish Maharaj, or Dhruv Maharaj, or Prahlad Maharaj, or whether the ordinary people. So if we take those, the spiritual progress is really going to be how much we take into our lives, and somehow we find the courage to battle with our own challenges, seek help where we can, but not to lose faith, because we at the end of the day, that motivation is where I have joined Prabhupada's movement, and what Prabhupada is doing, I can't even do a fraction of a percent. But if am on that same path, it will please him. So if that becomes the guiding principle, then even though we have challenges to balance, it maybe a significant part of the problem would just go away from automatically. I at this stage, I just like to ask Radha Priya to bring in key aspect, because oftentimes because we are devotees, we have come in the movement relatively recently. The enthusiasm for the taking up a spiritual work, sadhana becomes is strong. Even if it is not strong, we have a pressure anyway, because we have many of us may have taken initiations, or we want to take. So that automatically becomes like a pressure, just like we are also pressure in the workplace, because not that we may love going there, but we have a discipline which is enforced upon us, because you can't avoid it. So the third aspect, where the requirement at the family, is where generally the big problems come, because there's no pressure like work or in temple, because now that we are attached to temple, everyone knows us, and so we have to do what we have to do. So at the cost of something else, that something else becomes family. So the need, I think she's much better placed to speak about it. So I just ask her to take over.
We all are in this movement, and why we are in this movement? Because we found love. We found that people appreciate us. People you feel protected, you feel cared for, and you feel wanted. We all have not seen Prabhupada, but we all are sure that Prabhupada loves us. And because of his love, we are here in this movement. The same way, when in the family, why this type of love? Sometimes it is lacking in the family. So in families, the spiritual life and physical needs, they are met. But many times the emotional a need which is very important also, it's not met. And Radhanath Maharaj has created this counselor system for this need, and this is for personal care. And the brahmacharis also, they have counselor system because they also need emotional support. So this type of need we definitely need in our families. To create a happy family environment, it is a joint effort. Not only one person can do. When we clap, we need two hands. We cannot clap with one hand because uh, the husband and wife, they both are supporting each other. Then only that type of environment we can create. And my interaction with many Matajis is 30 years. I feel that the many Matajis, they feel lonely, they feel they are not cared for, and sometimes it is neglected, they are neglected also. So when that type of feeling is there, many times they will not say that. They will keep doing their rituals, their work, because they have to take care of the husband and the family and the in-laws and the children. They will keep doing it. But if she is not appreciated, and if she doesn't feel that I'm wanted, that the her enthusiasm will slowly goes down. So, but the men, they may feel, I'm providing money, I'm providing home, I'm providing everything. So why she needs, the emotional need, it is included, but emotional need is different. Men and women, they are made differently. God has made them differently, and the men's requirements are different, the women's requirements are different. And for that, we have to create a emotional bank account. In any bank, if we just keep on drawing things, drawing money, and we don't add anything, one day our check will bounce back. Same way, when there is no appreciation, when there is no uh, love, then as I said, that the wife will slowly feel empty from within, and one day it'll bounce back. So small gesture, like say, suppose if you are gone out of town, if the wife is not well, you can phone and find out that, how she is, what she has done. She has gone to the doctor or she has taken medicine. These small gestures. Suppose, this is what I have realized, and most of the time when the husband is not well, then he wants his wife around him all the time. But when a wife is sick, nobody is there for her. In the sense, the children go to school, college, the husband go to office, and she is left alone in the house. So you can just put yourself in that position and see, how would you feel? But nobody expects that you just leave your office and sit there 24 hours. But the small gestures will which will give them, that she will feel that I'm wanted, I'm cared for, I'm loved. So these small things make the family life easier than Okay.
So, Radha Priya was spelling out the critical need of one of the three, that is the emotional need, because usually that often gets missed out because, as I said earlier, work. There are others who are going to put the pressure on us, and temple also, in a sense, there is a pressure, so we automatically we'll be complying. So here we have to bring in that much more motivation. So we talked about approaching things with a consciousness and trying to balance and concentrating on ourselves. That's one aspect. Even then, that changing the perspective will help to some extent, because then we know that we are not feeling so guilty that, well, I am not doing my spiritual seva, because actually, if you're working with a motive to help, let's say, I mean, there are devotees I know who are greatly inspirational for the whole ISKCON for us, who have actually dedicated their businesses for making Krishna as a partner. That mentality, because they have been given that kind of background, they have also given that Krishna has given them that intelligence. So they have a very strong desire, so the very strong motivation, and then they're passionately following it. At the same time, they're managing their rounds, trying their best to spend time with their families. But then they hardly seen in satsangs or in festivals because they're traveling and so on. So as long as their Guru Maharajas and other devotees are connected, their blessings are there. They're very happy doing it. So I'm saying that here. So in that sense, here they have realized that work is also now. Not everyone is in that same level, but if you are working in whatever field, we, whether it's financially that we be able to help, but even otherwise, we have a certain sphere of influence. Uh, when the distributing books, or when we want to invite someone to programs, nowadays more and more programs of outsiders, we have an opportunity to get. We always are thinking that, can I connect so and so? Can I connect so and so? It brings meaning to our occupation, and same in the family. So therefore, that distinction can get blurred over time. Now, in spite of that, how we can further squeeze out more time during our day is another aspect. And even if our consciousness is there, we still need that help. And there we look for motivation. If we are a spiritual movement, then the spiritual guidance and the sincerity with which we are following, we can, if we have a strong desire, this is a pre-assumption that we have a strong desire that we want to really discharge all our responsibilities very well. Responsibility as a as a husband or wife, or father or mother, or son or daughter, as well as an employee, a citizen, as well as a devotee, a disciple. So we are concerned. That's why we are talking about it. So if that desire is strong, then we will really sincerely follow our practices as much as possible, take guidance from others. And believe me, once we find that motivation, then we can, it's like, just walking over, many times it will be just like walking over challenges which we otherwise would have felt impossible to do it. You can just look at Srila Prabhupada's life and schedule, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's schedule. It's not a coincidence that there have been our Acharya. It's very rare to find that how did Prabhupada spend 22 hours at that age. He never neglected his health also. So in his priorities, he knew that he had to, he was preaching that we are not this body. But when it came to taking health, he would never miss his morning walk. He would be having a very healthy diet and frugal diet. He took care, and that's why he could manage to go 13 times around the world in 12 years. At the same time, he was preaching. He was taking care. He was like a parent to his disciples, and then fighting court cases, battling, answering 40, 50 letters a day. There were no emails and mobile phones at that time. So all this he was juggling every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So he got that motive because he had that passion to follow his Guru Maharaj's instructions. So if we can find some motivation, that's what we need to do it. Whether it's a motivation that we can help the temple and our family, if we just believe that the responsibility is given to me, I don't know why I've been given, but the responsibility is there that I've been connected to the temple. The responsibility is there because I've been connected to this family. The responsibility is there because I've been given this. Many people don't have work, and I've got an opportunity to be in this particular occupational field. And then, if you see it in that positive light, it's like saying that glass is half full or half empty. If you see it that way, then that motivation comes. And why we need that motivation? Because if that motivation is there, then the enthusiasm comes. And if the enthusiasm comes, then Krishna, he's the intelligence among the intelligent. So he's the one who gives us the intelligence. Radhanath Swami Maharaj once very clearly mentioned, when he was asked about similar thing about balancing. Many times he's asked that, Maharaj, how do we balance? And once I remember he very clearly said, actually, Krishna gives the intelligence. Why would you have to use your intelligence for something easy? So therefore, balancing is not easy, but that's why we've been given intelligence. That's why we are differentiated from the animal species. So the challenge is there, but the intelligence will come, and if it gets purified by sincere approach to Krishna consciousness, believe me, really, creativity comes in. So many ways we can discharge our activities. Radha Priya was mentioning about on the emotional need. Sometimes we feel that sometimes the wives may feel the husbands are not spending enough time, or the husbands are also themselves maybe feeling. But it's not a matter of time. See, the emotional need, like for instance, our Guru Maharaj is not, Radhanath Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj is not here in Mumbai. But most of the Guru Maharajas, they keep traveling all over. And Prabhupada is not even on this planet. But why we feel so motivated? Because we feel connected, because we know that they care for us. So in the same way, the physical proximity is not necessarily the issue. Just like a salesman in a company, there are people who have to travel 250 days a year. If they're traveling still, they're very closely connected with the company, even though they're not physically there. Of course, that may be a commercial need, but the fact the connection is there. So in our case, is the emotional issue, wherever we are, even if you're not there, if their family is in our thought, in our heart, and if we are concerned about them, it doesn't need physical presence to demonstrate that. If we are, whether we are in the same city or other cities, 1 or 2 phone calls a day, messages are there, we remember their birthdays. If we anticipate, if the daughter or son has just gone through, has given a test, we remember and just find out in the evening, phone and say, how did you do? We attend their program. We give it a priority. Believe me, many times when we are not able to do, the family will rally around because they know that we have already clinched that, they're convinced that that they are important in our lives. So how to bring that? There are various ways now. With technology has made it much simpler in terms of communication. So whether it's WhatsApp messages, and it's not superficial, and it is not symbolic. It's something meaningful. If it is important, we will be concerned. Just like if a very senior personality is giving a lecture which we want to hear, a guru is giving or somebody is giving, we will adjust automatically, and somehow we'll make the adjustments and do it. So same way here, if something is important, we will be able to comply with that emotional need in different ways. So just like in a workplace also, we are always striving to see how we can fulfill our requirements that we need to do. Similarly here, so therefore, my point was that motivation is very important, and we need to internalize and introspect that. Am I, after having come into these years, is my motivation flagging? Is my loyalty flagging? If not, then why should I not be in a better position than others? Let's take today's lockdown period for the last 2 months. It's a very traumatic period for everybody, clearly, not just in India, but almost many parts of the world. And in India, it is in most places, especially in the cities. But nevertheless, wouldn't we say that devotees are in a much better position because they have, so much association, contact, people who care for them, love for them. So if it's there in the community, to bring it in the family is not difficult if we put this in a in our mind. So it's just a matter of putting it in the shelf space of our mind, and then time is not the issue. You can use post-its, to make some gifts, some surprises are there, whatever. There are so many ways to demonstrate it. If the need is there, it will be done. So therefore, while the challenge will not go away, it will always be a challenge, but it becomes easier because then the expectations from others also become reasonable, because they also see that we're striving, and that there is no miscommunication, that we have already established this first thing, that we appreciate our family members, we care for them, and that care comes from noticing things, observing things, expressing our gratitude, genuinely feeling that, because when we express it, then the chances of criticizing also become less. Both the things don't happen. Expressing appreciation and expressing criticizing doesn't go together. So this is what Krishna has given us, why Prabhupada's example is with us, why we are so have come in this movement. There must be reasons. So these reasons are our, you can say, tools, our strength to counter the challenge that we face. Also, another proof is that all of us, prior to joining the movement, we had a certain set of time. I mean, same time was there, but now, if we look back and say, how is it that I'm able to put 2 hours away for chanting, or whatever number we may chant, 1 hour, 2 hours a day, every day. We are spending time for other activities which were not there before, and still my day is going on. So while the pressure is there, but it has fitted in. So that means we have changed the priorities. We have seen that if I was reading newspapers for half an hour, 45 minutes, now I can do it in 15 minutes. If I was taking, whatever, each one's own personal pleasures, maybe for different needs. So we have seen that what is my priority. So this prioritization is happening all the time, and we can put this in our minds. And Radhanath Maharaj once mentioned that the secret of the use of our intelligence is that we have to give the attention that each and every one of our responsibilities requires. So if our responsibility, whatever responsibility we take, then we should fulfill it to the fullest. So responsibility automatically, this is the minimum we have, that we are part of a family, we are part of a spiritual movement, and we are part of a company or some organization, occupational need. So these, all the three will have its needs, and how we meditate on that without getting completely, mentally affected, coolly, getting the inspiration and the courage from various people, examples from others, is really where, and also find happiness, because ultimately, if we are contented, many times the happiness doesn't come because maybe we may confuse, or we may also be very upset with ourselves, we're frustrated, and that comes out, and then that becomes a spiral. While on the other hand, if we say that, well, we'll do our best, and whatever I'm doing, a large part of it, some things I may not be liking, but I do it, but many things I like. So if we appreciate what we are doing, I mean, we enjoy what we do, there's nothing wrong with that, because we need to find that pleasure. So there's nothing wrong in finding pleasure and having prasad. I mean, you don't have to feel guilty that, oh, I'm feeling, why am I feeling pleasure? No, we don't. I mean, it's a great thing. We just love it. So similarly, when we are serving others, we would have a deep desire to, slowly it starts getting, pleasing others, slowly starts becoming our nature. Then that becomes so, then even if we are in a difficult situation, like today, for instance, but our mind will be concentrating on what more can I do. So to the extent that we are in the world of I, me, and mine, to that extent, the challenge is, the problem is that we tend to be reckless, and we tend to be within our own circle, and therefore our expectations increase. While to the extent that we are thinking of others, and it happens when we're looking at as ourselves as a servant, then clearly the whole shift is, what more can I do? So anxieties will be there, but those anxieties will be to please others, and that's a very different type of anxiety. So if we concentrate on that and then find pleasure in that, we will. It's a matter of time. It just our mind has to be conditioned to know that my pleasure is not just because I'm doing this and I want to do this and others should adjust. No, I'm doing this because this is needed. I'm doing it, and over time, I'm feeling happy that I'm doing what is needed. So it's like somebody who's following a healthy diet. You may sometimes eat things which you have to avoid many things, but you have to eat things initially you may not like it, but over time you get used to it, and then getting used to that, then you start developing a taste for it. So many times it's a taste which actually gets developed. So same way in service, some things we do it because our determination will tell us to do it. So if you start doing that, then the balancing effort does not become so painful. And I now wanted to just shift to so having seen that okay, we strive to get motivation, enthusiasm, which could also help us. Another key factor would be that there are some techniques and tips which how we can improve our time management, and those are practical aspects. Those are nothing to do necessarily with spirituality or work. It is just with ourselves. Um, time management can be a whole subject by itself, but I will not go into that in great detail. I'll just take a few things because some practical aspects can actually help us a lot. We talked of prioritizing, for instance. There are issues which are urgent and there are things which are important. I'm just sharing because I have a habit of listing down what are the issues which I have. Sometimes I note it down in my mobile, or sometimes it's on front of me for the week or for the next 3-4 days. So then differentiating between what is urgent, what is important, and what is not urgent, not important. So urgent would be what is like if it's a crisis, or if it's a very pressing problems, or where if it is there is a deadline to be met, so automatically comes in the urgent category. And then important would be they're not urgent in terms of time. For instance, something when planning or health. Health is an important aspect, but it's not like urgent. It could be relationships. Building relationships are important. Definitely come in important category, but they're not urgent. So urgent would probably take priority in terms of doing it. Then you also find time as to if I have to do some tasks. Some urgent things are not very palatable. Sometimes they're not easy, and then many times our frustration grows because we are postponing it. So that happens. That what we call procrastination. There's a word called procrastination, which means that we keep avoiding doing this, and we say I'll do it later, and just we keep avoiding it because it's not very pleasant, or something which needs a lot of effort, or you may have to interact with people you're not comfortable with, whatever. So, but it is important or urgent, and that procrastination, to avoid that, we have to also, if we understand that I am responsible for the activities, so we understand why am I procrastinating, what am I procrastinating for. If we ask ourselves, sometimes we just instinctively feel I don't want to do it now, but if we ask ourselves why or what for am I procrastinating, then we say that, well, when I have to do it, whether I do it 3 days later or now, but it will benefit many people if I were to just confront this issue head on. So let me take it earlier. So that's something which we can remember. Another thing is that many times we're not consciously aware that we are wasting time. That is with most of us, that we may be taking much longer than the time is needed. So I grant that everyone may not be so conscious of time, and we don't need to go to an extreme. But even if we make 10-20% improvement in our consciousness of the time factor, then it would really add, we get that much more time. One way to do that is just to remember a very important dictum that if we don't manage our time properly, very often we are affecting other people's services. I think if you were told straight away that you are actually directly obstructing someone's service, you will say, "Of course not. I'm not doing it." But then, if you were told that, well, because you are delaying and because you did not attend this meeting, or you did not do this, or you didn't do this properly, it had to be redone, and therefore the whole thing. It may happen once in a while, but that adds to it. So if you are aware that by procrastinating, I may be affecting other services, or by wasting time, I may be affecting services, you might improve. So these are tips to improve our time aspect, and sometimes squeezing out little time here and there actually gives us a relief, because then we are left with relatively adequate time. also, so continuously thinking of ways to free up time, just like all of us have gone through that subconsciously when we took up chanting. Chanting was something which came into our life, and it was not that there was an empty space waiting for that period. Everything was filled up. We were always doing something. Our mind cannot be completely blank. So we sleep as the number of hours we sleep, but the remaining time it is occupied by something or the other. So when the chanting came in, clearly we must have already prioritized and said, well, this is not needed. This can be done lesser time, and it has happened in everyone's life. So if you just reflect on it and say that what we've achieved so far, now if I have to squeeze in more time, if I have to spend more time with the family, or if I can be more productive in my work, and I can squeeze out half an hour here, maybe every third day or fourth day. I may not have to go on a Saturday if I can finish this work. Whose help can I take? What training can I do? So many ways we can. This is where the intelligence will help us. For instance, with children, today's generation is a big challenge because it's a different generation now. So dealing with children needs an understanding of their psychologies and how to deal. We can't do it the same way we did it 30 or 60 years ago. So there also that we get help. If we take help from people, and there are even devotees who have done extremely well in their psychology, and they're offering programs and classes, we take tips from them. That's a sacrifice that we actually take time to understand how some of the basics, so that we respond. And why that helps us, because then our frustration, our anger, our miscommunication can become less. So it's a matter of consciousness that if I want to improve my service, whether it's to all my responsibilities that I've taken, how can I do it better? If that question really grips our mind, then there'll be very less time to gripe about the externals, which most of the time we don't have much control over. And I'd like to, and another thing is that we can learn to say no, and or later. That's another very practical problem every one of us has. That oftentimes, by enthusiasm, sometimes we get caught out, and we take on more than we can chew. So this happens, when we volunteer for a lot of things and we find that we can't do it, and then it may actually affect the
family.
It could be the family, or it could be even in the service also, because we have overcommitted. So because our heart doesn't want to displease someone. But if we understand rationally that actually if at the earlier stage, if I just can't do justice to it, I don't have the time, I just don't have, then there are things which there's no crime to say that no, I can't do it, or that I can't do it now, but I can do it after 1 month or some time later. So in some occasions, this also helps us in getting the balance, because just our inability to just say no at the right time, and then what happens is that we have said yes, now we can't say no, we can't do the justice, and then that frustrates us, and we are really in anxiety, and so many things. That becomes another spiral. So you may find 1 or 2 people commenting, saying, you're not doing it and we're depending on you, but you can explain. And as long as you are clear in your mind that I don't have the time, and it'll affect my other services, then we're well within our right to do it. So what we do, we can do well. Planning helps also. That if you can plan wherever possible, just anticipate and say whether say prioritizing things, classifying into important or urgent. Otherwise, what happens is that some of the urgent things are not important. For instance, we get phone calls which many times this interrupts us, or we get mails which are irrelevant. But if we don't, if we just go instinctively, then we go into a lot of our time. Some of our time may be going into mails or WhatsApps and things which are of no relevance, or at least not right now, and it affects things which we need to do now. So that can be pushed back. So if we approach with a proactive nature, that what can I do, again I would say it may be alien to you, but you can try it out and see by actually listing down, putting down the list of things of which have to be done or which must be done, and then seeing how I can plan my time around it. Also, what is our best time zone? Everyone has a different time zone. Generally, people are more productive in the morning times. Immediately after lunch, you don't take usually the most difficult issues. So when we're more fresh, we can take up the larger challenges. So these things, if you apply your mind, it's like when we look towards Krishna, Krishna looks towards us. Similarly, Krishna in the form of time, he's also time I am, Krishna says. So if we also approach time proactively, give this due respect, give attention to it, Krishna will give us the intelligence to be able to differentiate, to be able to, give us the idea that, okay, why am I doing this all the time? Somebody else could help me, can do it now. 30 years ago, I started with this service, but now I don't need to do it. You might then find out that you are doing it because you're attached to it. Oftentimes, why we have too many services, but in some services we want to do it because we love it. But if somebody else can do it, and if our need is somewhere else, then that is what we need to do. So I would end by a very important comment on this is that most of the time, when we say that I don't have time, it may actually mean that I don't want to, not that I can't. I just repeat, when I said, most of the time when we say that I can't do it, it's usually most of the time it is I don't want to, because I'm actually doing something which I'm more comfortable with, which which I've been doing for years, I find it easy. I like to deal with these people. So I'm doing those services. But in actuality, we may be called upon to do something else because of our experience and so on. And we may be avoiding that. So, and saying that I can't do it. But actually it's not I can't, I don't want to. So just question yourself. These are thoughts which I'm putting, which may be be helpful to improve the same time that all of us have, the same time that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had. How he managed to write 80 books and poems and still be a district magistrate giving. He used to finish his judgments before lunch when others would take the whole day or sometimes 2 days. It was he could give judgments in 10 minutes and people would take several hours. They later, and he had so many children, he was giving attention to them. So it's a matter of using the intelligence that Krishna has given us and being alive and aware. The word aware, just I'm aware of the environment. And if you see, if you observe people whom I'm going by the people whom I have deep respect and they whether it's Prabhupada disciples or whether some of my senior God brothers who are maybe there for 10 years or 30 years. If I just reflect on them, the one common factor I see is that they're always alive. Alive doesn't mean that I have life in me, of course. Alive means that they are their mind is sharp and they're aware of things that are surrounding them, and they're always in control of what they want to do. So because of that, their reactions are also in a much better time way. So I just summarize by saying that while we have challenges in front of us, balancing is difficult, but it is not impossible, and it's very essential. And the key is to really concentrate on what we need to do rather than what I want to do. And then there are help that we can take from first just the understanding that much of the work we are doing at home or in the work can also be, those activities are also devotional service. So we need not say that because I have not gone to a temple 3 days in a row, I'm glooping. No, so we don't judge by physical activities. It is really our mind, what we are doing. And like Radhanath Maharaj once commented to one Mataji who she had just got married, and before that she used to come regularly to the temple. And then she mentioned to him that I'm really feeling really bad because I used to work in the DT kitchen and now I can't come because I stay far and now I've got a son. So Maharaj had made that very famous statement, which has been repeated oftentimes, that for you, raising your son in Krishna consciousness atmosphere is as good as dressing Radharani or cooking for Radha Gopinath. So, it's a very heavy statement, made very clear, as good as, not almost as good. So, which means that is the consciousness at which we do it. Because Krishna in our heart is there. Just like this, whether we're sweeping the floor or we're dressing the deities, there is no difference. It's so same way activities is not the issue is the consciousness. So we keep that in mind, and then some of the tips that I mentioned about time management, where we could we can stop, be aware of if you're wasting time or if we're procrastinating and why we're doing that. What can and we continuously think of ways to free up time. Then those things can also help us. So at this stage, Link, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji and Mataji, for the deep insights on the subject. The first question is, business requires a lot of passion. This passion in turn leads to enjoying, which disturbs spiritual life. Also, because of the anxieties of business, one is not able to give justice to one's family and sadhana. Even when there is time for family and sadhana, the mind is preoccupied with many thoughts and anxieties. What is the correct remedy? Also wanted to know the practical barometer of atyahar in business.
We covered part of much of this in my talk also, that our tendency is to go into one. That's a human nature, that we go into one activity very passionately. We may have achieved success. We may be liking to do that, or we may be governed by that fact that we need to earn more or get. So if we are concerned about a spiritual, actually, there are many people, millions of people outside who are will not be concerned because they think that is the only thing. That's fine. I mean, they don't have a spiritual angle, and family may or may not be much of an issue for them. So they, in one sense, they don't have an anxiety, or not. They have different anxiety, but not this question. If this presupposes that we have that, so for us the question is about why that we use our intelligence to see what is the balance. We can't go overboard, and ultimately knowing that Krishna is in control. So I've seen in my personal life, I mean, I can give, it would take me days to just explain miraculous things, both positive and externally may not having positive. The things which we want to do don't happen. Things which we didn't want or didn't expect, it has happened. So many things happen. So it is a matter of who we have to keep making an effort. So business-wise, we do our best we can, but not at the expense of our other responsibilities. So it is not that if I miss out that extra hour, it means I can quantify that and say that I've made today people have gone bankrupt, people are badly affected, people are in huge debt. Doesn't mean that they're lazy, or they have put in huge efforts. Many are very intelligent, much smarter than maybe I am, probably. But then they have the challenges. I mean, they, for whatever, maybe their karma. So our effort is to strike a balance if it is important. So if it is a priority to, and how that I've explained that, I think we certain amount of discipline and determination has to come in, that where our intelligence tells us that no, there's thus far and no further. And if the family is important, then we may not physically be so much with them. Supposing we are traveling, we could easily find so many ways of making sure that they know that we are concerned for them. That there is no excuse. I can tell you for sure there is no way we can that can be that we have to be physically there. There's so many ways. I mean, by phones, messages, the concern that would be there for somebody to know that that we are a priority for them. It's not difficult. We can immediately make out that person loves me so much because and if especially if spending a lifetime with someone. So if it is important, we can certainly find time for. And as far as spiritual also is concerned, to some extent we may physically be able to increase the time, but to the extent we are not able to physically increase the time, again we can do a lot from where we are. I mean, for instance, my workplace, maybe because I am 65, so I have more time. But you can make phone calls. People come to meet. There's lots of things which you can do to contact, because it's not like every minute of those 9-10 hours that you're away, you're going to concentrate only on what is there. So if the thought is in your mind, you can do a lot. So it's just we have to question, is it important? If it is important, then we will be able to find the time. And if it is going overboard, something needs to be reduced, then we have to take the tough call and reduce it. But I think even without reducing, we can be able to add other responsibilities if we feel it's a priority.
Thank you for the wonderful answer. The next question is for Mataji. As Prabhus are so busy with their office work and services, being the wife, how should one manage the family responsibilities? And if you have any message for working women in taking care of family and services as well.
First is that I'm not a working wife, so I may not be able to give the right advice, but I've always been a housewife. And from the beginning, Prabhuji and myself, it was very clear that most of the, all the office work, he takes care. So I don't interfere in that matter. And the house responsibility, I do it whenever I require his help. He's always there. But we have not interfere in each other's work or and decision always, house things always decision is taken jointly, and he is always very supportive and very caring, very all the time he just encourages me to do a lot of things. So that also has made me do a lot of things. And yeah.
I keep telling her how lucky she is to have me. No, but actually, she's answered it very well. The thing also, I should just add that I'm not that busy. People keep thinking I'm very busy. I never go to my office before 10:30 in the morning. So I have a lot of time in the morning because now I've changed and I'm 65, so I'm entitled to that. So in that sense, I'm much more relaxed. So there's not much pressure that way. I don't work on weekends usually. My son is now much more active, so it's easier now.
Thank you, Mataji and Prabhuji. The next question is, we have to undergo many work pressures most of the times. How do we deal with that? Because at times on daily basis, they get outpoured on the wife and children. I have heard wife should be tolerant and understanding. Kindly explain.
Well, I can start, and then if you like to want to add something. Yeah, I think work pressures, it's a challenge, increasingly so, where we are not in control, and we have to be in the best behavior, because if we are frustrated or angry, we can't take it out at our boss or our colleagues. We'll be out the next minute. So we have to suppress it, and then the steam comes out, usually in the intimate moments at home. That's where, so yes, we may have some, if we are regretting that those things have happened, at least we can, to start with, we can rectify that by apologizing, because relationships in the family, it's not that mistakes are not made and people lose their temper or so on, but the problem is that couples find it very difficult to express their thanks and their apologies sincerely to each other. This is the biggest problem. So first, if we start,
they take it for granted.
Yeah, they take it for granted that, well, it's understood, and then sometimes it festers for a day or two, and then there is a sulking, awkwardness, and so on. It goes on, and then there is a grudging acknowledgement. So these things really, sometimes go to the root of this emotional bank balance that she talked of. So I would suggest that if you know that the pressures are there in the office, sometimes we may still let go because we may lose control. We are human, we make mistakes. But if we know that it is something with their innocent, then we have to apologize sincerely. It helps us because by verbalizing it, it makes it that much less likely that we'll be doing it again in the future. Also, if we also can try and see that put ourselves in the other person's shoes. So when we're coming home, if the person at home, for instance, has nothing to do to he or she, I'd say the wife has also got her challenges at home, and if we were to add to it, then are we actually remembering that she is also Krishna's property, or are we actually acting as if she's my property? Then when I want to vent out my emotional garbage, she's always ready. So then, these things, these are the kind of spiritual underlinings that we can take and try to remember. Maharajas may give many quotes, Radhanath Maharaj, that we can just take this. And this is one of them, that, they're not meant to be our emotional garbage can, that we can just dump anything that we want. Would we like it that way? So if we put ourselves in a position, that might help to remember that, we should act to the extent that we can, we means we will do only what others can, will allow others to do for us. And I can tell you that, supposing, I say from my own experience also, that if we made mistakes, and even if we make an effort to rectify it, that effort is always acknowledged. People, we can see if somebody is trying to change, then that change is acknowledged, and the other person actually immediately, out of relief and happiness, even just seeing that, okay, instead of say 5 times a week is now only 3 times a week, or in 1 or 2 occasions it was almost like that, but it controlled. And then they also reciprocate to a great extent. So that reciprocation again emboldens us, and then we also again become heartened to make greater efforts. So it's really a positive cycle that starts moving. So in all respects, we have to. It's a challenge. It's a very big challenge, but we have to remember that our family is Krishna's property, entrusted to us to take care. And if you were to be offensive, then all that is going to be extremely harmful for our spiritual progress.
As he said, it is very hard. But when anything happens in the office, or like, say, suppose if you are traveling in a bus or a train, somebody comes and just your leg is touched someone, immediately that sorry comes. Or somebody gives you something in the office, immediately thank you comes. But why this sorry and thank you doesn't come with a family member? Because we take them for granted. It is not required. It's okay, it happens. But these small things, the little scar keeps happening on the other person's heart.
And since this question is probably from a Prabhuji, so I can relate to that, as Radha Priya covered it very well, that the psychologies of men and women are different, and you must have heard it also in the Grihastha seminars in the past. And in that, one key difference is that women judge their worth by the relationships, and men try to quantify. Their nature is to quantify various things. So men take things for granted. So if you're aware that we assume that, okay, if I'm not appreciating verbally, it doesn't mean I'm disrespecting her. That's our mentality. But actually, women's nature is such that maybe it's insecurity, that they need to hear that. They need to hear this kind of support, this kind of appreciation, that they're valued. And that if that is done, and it will be both sides. If that is done, then what happens is that the foundation on that emotional account, an analogy, the foundation becomes strong, so that even if there is sometimes some outburst and some kind of withdrawal from that bank by some argument, or sometimes some eruption takes place for some time, it will quietly die down and it will not harm the basic foundation. But you have to build that foundation by constantly small acts of acknowledgement, kindness, concern, anticipation, trying to help. So many things that can be done. Okay, helping family by chipping in, with the kids, whatever. So sometimes we may take them out. Whichever way we put, say, what would they want to do? So if you've done that, then when we have some slippages, it would be, of course, we also make an effort to try to understand that they are Krishna's property, etc. But even then, if the slippages take place, it will be much less disruptive and definitely much less harmful for our spiritual life.
I would like to add something here, that when the couples are there, sometimes, the Matajis, they say that when we have guests, everyone appreciates what I cook. But my husband never appreciates anything. He will appreciate other women's, other Mataji's prasad, but he will never appreciate whatever I cook. One time somebody was telling me that she had made sepuri for her husband, and she just put the plate in front of him and turned away immediately. So the husband, he just said, "Come here," this tone, "Come here." So she turned back and she just looked at him. He said, "Sepuri was nice." I mean, her heart was hearing that sinking. Okay, now what he will say, this is not proper, this is not proper. But the way he appreciated also, it's not very taken well. If you like something, you can just say, "Oh, it is so wonderful. It is the best sepuri I've had." There is a difference. The person who she cannot even take that praise. "Oh, it was nice." So these small things makes the relationship go a little up and
Smoother.
down.
So beautifully explained. Thank you so much, Mataji. We move on to the next question. How to win hearts and make a good relationship in our working environment right from beginning. We cannot mix with them easily as they are more interested in illicit activities. In long run, we become secluded from formal gatherings and have to work hard to sustain and excel individually amidst less information and friends' support.
See, when we are working outside, um, definitely having come to, we were also in a different environment till we came in association devotees, and we're trying to change. We should also guard ourselves on from thinking that we are superior. What has happened to us is that we have been more fortunate. We are not superior. We are just more fortunate that we have been blessed with. We don't know how Krishna has come in. Somebody has invited us to a temple, or a friend called at a home, satsang pro. Somewhere some connection took place, and why it happened to us? So therefore, we've got a fortune, and therefore that has changed. So we may not be now doing some of those activities which others may be doing it. That's true. So if we become too judgmental, then what happens is that we will also have a distaste for an anyway difficult task. So it is difficult to be in an environment which is not very happy, not very conducive, ideally. But then, from our point of view, if we know that there is always something better. There's a motivation why I'm working, so I'll tolerate that. So tolerance will become that people are tolerating me. I also have to tolerate the situation. Um, it may also mean that people will laugh at me that how come you are, now we sadhu ban gaye, so many things. I remember when I came to ISKCON, then till that time, I used to also, because we had many foreign collaborations, so I was a social drinker. And then suddenly I changed. So it was very odd. First I thought, all these Germans were coming, and and then in a whole group, I'm standing with a glass of tomato juice, and they all have their own, scotch or vodka, and I was feeling really embarrassed at how it looked. My consciousness was, oh, I'm not into it, not with them. But I found that actually they were not concerned. In fact, they noticed, and one or two may ask that why don't you drink or you don't. And then I would give the answer. So we will be seen in different light, but that's because, as I said, because we're fortunate. So if you have that mind that we are going to go in a difficult environment, as an austere environment, but I'm doing it for a purpose, because that I need to support my family, I need to support my activities in the temple, then there will be a meaning to it, and then we may also find use of it. Everyone has their pluses and minuses. Just because they've not come in contact with ISKCON, they may be eating non-veg, for instance. So we may not, but then maybe they if you go with the Janmashtami advertisement, they may agree, or they might not everyone, but some of them may. So over time, our consciousness would be to look at, okay, who are the people who may have some kind of a pious background? Can I make contact with them? So these kind of thoughts would come with us. So it would give us less opportunity to criticize where it's an obvious situation that we are in an environment which is difficult. Why should we make it more difficult by gritting our teeth and saying I have to bear it, I have to bear it, I have to bear it. It is true that we have to bear it, but actually it can be more pleasant by seeing the benefits that come out of it, and that we in a whole 24, or let's say in a whole week of 168 hours, if you're working for say maybe 45, 50 hours or so, in that a lot of time we are to ourselves. So the time that we have to interact with others, which is a little challenging time, is much less. And then we have so much time to make up by also other activities. And one other thing is that to the extent, part of the reason we appreciate ISKCON or devotees or temple deities, part of the reason the appreciation increases is because we see the other extreme. Only if someone who has actually had has seen the other side, then they realize that how much valuable this is. Like someone has been starved of food and then is given food, then he really appreciates every morsel that he has. So same way, those who are working outside, and I'm sure most of us will have the same feeling that actually it is an austerity, but that actually makes us even more appreciative, rather than sometimes we are nitpicking about, even among devotees, that he said this and she said this, and he's not cooperative in this, and we have small issues. But if we see in the larger context that how difficult the outside world is, then that strengthens our inner conviction even more, and appreciate even more that what our sadhu sang means for us, and that we should try to take even more advantage, and we're more grateful for it.
Thank you, Prabhu. And the next question is, in the working environment today, the mantra is survival of the fittest. How do we understand from the perspective of a devotee when we need to make a choice? How do you utilize the extra time over and above basic sadhana for a day? Whether utilize it to develop a skill that is needed for progressing in our profession, or spend extra time in reading Srila Prabhupada's books, satisfied with the level that we are in?
So actually, this would be a personal choice, but I can say that how we approach such a situation is that if it may also depend on, like, supposing I've just got married, and I'm also and I have not even had children yet, and my family is going to grow. I don't have a house, or I've taken a house, I've got a loan. So to that extent, I may have increased financial need. To that extent, I may think that I would also need to, so within my, well within my time limits and my capacity, I can still do much more. And I can, if I add these skills, it can help me. Then that's a very good thought. But if it's not affecting my other tasks also, so those spare times may come sporadically. So so at that time, I may think that I may even take some skills which can help me for the future, or that my present skills may not be enough and I need to reskill myself or increase it so that my stability would be even more. So those are not bad thoughts, because those actually also gives a foundation for bringing the stability which is important to give to our family, because they are our responsibility also, and also to that extent for our temple activities and people who are maybe emotionally connected to us. They see us in a stable environment. So for all those reasons, it can be there. On the other hand, if a person doesn't need that, then there must be a strong reason why we're doing it. Otherwise, if it is, we should be careful that we are complying with whatever is needed, and just see that whether our boss or people whom we report to in a company environment are satisfied with our work. If there's something which we need to do more to satisfy, because it's a difficult world there, then I think we need to make sure that at least we reach the minimum. So we may not go that extra mile just to join the rat race and work 80 hours or 90 hours a week. But on the other hand, we could certainly look at find the intelligence to reach the level that I need. So in that, if I need to spend that time for skilling myself or doing something which is in my work environment, okay. Otherwise, if it's not needed, then I can spend time either with my family, which is also, if I rare time, if I get a chance, I can take them out or something, or spend time at home, or help with my children's homework or whatever, or read Srila Prabhupada's books if that really, if we are into reading a lot, or connecting with some of the devotees and seeing what services we can do. So any of the activities. So it would be a dynamic situation, but the thought process would be that it should not compromise our definitely our spiritual life. That is very important. We need to protect that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. The next question is of a mother who loves to be soaked all the time in Krishna consciousness, but her family, the kids especially, they want her to be materially engaged into some business that they have started. But now she says she's no more ambitious and loves only Krishna conscious activities. How to balance this? She feels like why to waste time in doing other material activities?
So here the question would be, because if the children are asking, say if they started something and they're asking the mother to join in, I'm assuming that the mother has some skills or some value or some experience which they think it can help. If that is the case, and if it is not like a full-time thing, and if it isn't going to completely divert her lifestyle totally, then the thought could also be that I need to sacrifice my time. Krishna knows what my desires are, but if it is to build a little stability for my child's new venture, and they think I can help out, if that's the thought, then I think that should be a consideration. But so while the appreciation, I mean the need for is there, but is it only that I'm thinking for myself or am I thinking for my family? But if the danger is that my family and others are actually, I'm just hypothesizing, it may not be the case, but if that is one way that the family wants to break her spiritual connection, or they want to take her away from it, and I mean, if that's the danger, then she can always lay down and say, I can help this much, I can do this, and but I need I need other time also, because I'm not a corporate person and I'm not in that, but I can help out, and I'm extending myself to such. So in other words, she can help the children, because ultimately they are also they're expecting a help from her, and that's a good thing. That's a great service, even though it is not what she wants, but it may be what is probably necessary.
She can talk to the children and say that this is not my interest.
They must be probably knowing, that it's not my interest. But if she can actually help out, and if there's value to her connection, then she should see if that she can transfer her experience and help to them for a limited period, which can stabilize, and then she can go back to finding the extra time. This is what. So the question would be, what would Krishna want me to do? And reading books is a connection to getting closer to Krishna. But if we are trying to see what Krishna sees that I am sacrificing, for others' sake, because it's my responsibility, though it's not my desire, then he could be pleased. But I have to preface it by saying that I don't know the full situation, so my reactions are based on that limited understanding.
Thank you, Prabhuji. The next question is for Mataji. In your opinion, what should be the best training for the young girls who may be very serious and enthusiastic to take up the process of ISKCON standard bhakti, but are unaware of what the future brings for them? We who have gone through all that and know that it won't be practical for them in future married lives, should we as teachers motivate young females or our own grown-up kids for such high level of spiritual commitment? After decades of practicing it myself, I'm aware of its challenges very well. Please guide.
First, you have to understand what is ISKCON Bhakti. ISKCON Bhakti doesn't mean that you leave everything and just run to temple. Many times the girls, they are very happy to do some Rajbhog Seva in the kitchen, the temple. But if the mother is saying, come and help me in the kitchen, they don't want to do that. So the most important thing the girls, they have to learn is cooking. Because this is what is very essential for a married girl. If she thinks, if I just go to temple, do some seva, people will notice me. And if that motivation is different, that is not the right thing. And the best training she can get is from her mother. The cooking, the taking care of the house, and taking care of other things, managing the house. If she learns these and then she does her spiritual life, it'll be the best combination. And she can become a very good wife in future. So sometimes when we come in the moment, we are very enthusiastic and we want to do everything in excess, because there is a limit of spiritual life is most important. I'm not denying that. But if your mother is not well and she wants you to come in the kitchen to do cooking, and if you say, no, I have to chant my 16 rounds, I have no time, that is not spiritual life. So
I just add from another perspective. I'm seeing from the man's point of view. In all the seminars we've had, and we had the last 4-5 years several seminars for unmarried boys, and covered several hundreds of them in the IYS boys, and more than 95% when we just took what are the expectations, almost all of them said that they would expect their wife to know cooking. So I don't know.
and good cooking.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I've understood the question well, but you were saying that various skills. Now the ISKCON standards. So if you're talking about a girl getting, going to get married, then what is it she needs to know? So in terms of the spiritual connection, I don't think it's anything should be left back. I mean, the philosophy, the beauty of the seva, the deities, all the attraction can be, I mean, it is not something which is going to be against her in future. Supposing she gets married to in a house which is not so favorable to Krishna consciousness, that's, or maybe neutral. They are just, most families maybe, so what the needs are? The needs would be to take care of the house. What are the expectations of whoever is staying there, whether there's a nuclear family or the joint family. So those trainings need to be given in addition to the spiritual. But if you say that no, my condition is, because we had those cases earlier that some girls would say that my condition is that I must go for Mangalarti every morning.
And
Now,
go for Bhagavatam class.
Yeah. Now after marriage, I mean that may or may not happen because there's so many needs may change. So those that we may border on fanaticism. So we have to. So I'm assuming that when you talk of training, the spiritual training is very important, because that is the backbone of our philosophy, that we're not this body and all that. But along with it, training for what marriage holds in future, these things, that okay, take the good with the bad. There'll always be pluses, minuses. Chalane ka hai sab, you have to manage, and that's how it brings maturity. So I don't see why that could be a dichotomy in the two, from the way I look at it.
Yes, Prabhuji. The next question is, how much important is entertainment in Grihastha's life? Sometimes guilt feeling comes whenever we are involved in entertainment for family's sake. Who has interest in this aspect of life? How much important is entertainment in Grihastha's life?
See, the standards, the gold standards are already laid down. And ideally that people, there are many families who don't even have a television at home. Maybe they lead a very simple life and they don't have time for anything else. That is an ideal way. Assuming that the husband and wife and the kids are also happy in that, that's wonderful. They may find entertainment in different ways, hosting people, going to the other homes, and finding time where they're happy. Entertainment means finding happiness. There may be silver standards, there may be bronze standards, there may be standards where devotees are at different levels. I would say in two ways. We don't need to be disheartened, because people are not perfect. Everyone has their weaknesses. The most important thing is that it should not be detrimental and deviating us from the main path. If that shakes our loyalty to the movement, because our value system start changing, because the problem with entertainment is that, and I have very strong views on that, because I think, it's very apparent that most of the people, and surprisingly all over the world, who are connected to that, if you talk of whether it's television or movies, people who make these, write the scripts, etc., their thinking is so, I would say, agnostic and very diametrically opposite in most cases. I mean, I would say 99% of cases. I hardly ever find anyone, their views and values. So that is a danger where they can really shake our very, 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 very gently and subtly, weaken our resolve about our own value systems and way we look at things. Then slowly it is put into as if we are traditionalists, as if we are almost fanatics, as if we are in a different world and you don't know what is happening now. So many aspects, then, so that's where the danger is, because they will start glorifying in a very, different ways, extramarital sex, or maybe, abortions or things like that. And they'll do it in a very clever way, thinking that, oh, it was such a desperate need. And so the dangers we may not be able to, like I see from my own, I think in the 60s and 70s, I was just, I used to just lap up these cowboy movies and these, war movies and so on. And then the emotional romance movies and so many, I mean, seeing them umpteen times. Only later when I joined, and then I could realize that gradually that, okay, it didn't affect me, because when then I, understanding from the philosophical point of view, it's become very clear. But especially for younger people, the danger is this, that it could really very subtly shake our basic thoughts, and we may not see it opposing our spiritual life, but actually in a real sense, it may be without our knowing it. So having said that, people, I mean, many parents feel, okay, for the children also, then they see what is relatively lesser of the problem. So there will be cartoons, or there will be animated pictures, children's movies for them. So if we are doing it, and I know people who, all family members are not on the same level, so then they compromise to that extent, and still they have retained their connection. So we don't need to point to there and say that then, okay, I should also keep only that. We have to see our own level and see that if I'm able to reach the highest level, that's the best. But if I am not able to, and if I'm, at least I should, the minimum is that we should not be, it should not shake our commitment. And that there are many ways that we can look at ourselves and see that, is my commitment weakening? Is my desire to chant weakening? Is my desire to serve weakening? Because slowly, that is what may happen. And then, as Prabhupada said, that one day you might even find that my Guru Maharaj is a big burden on me. It may come to that level because he is making so many expectations and demands on me. So that danger is there. So if you're alive to the danger, and if you have the, on practical level, many families will be taking the, option of saying that it is much better that at least the families are together rather than going out and exposing, because nowadays if you send children to parties, then that becomes another problem. If you don't send them, then where will they play? You send them to play with other children, and they pick up so many things. So if the parents step in to help children to play with them, they may play games with them, board games, whatever. And then they may also be seeing, some shows, etc. So then if they're judging from this point of view that A, it doesn't affect their value system, and B, if it's just kind of a time pass, then while it may not be ideal, but it may not be detrimental. That's my view.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. The next question is, we hear in the temple and Bhagavatam lectures that when we chant, we actually ask for Krishna's service. However, if because of our official and family commitments, we are unable to commit to services offered to us, most of the time we feel guilty because of this. How to understand the situation?
But when we are asking for service, means a family is also a service, and our work can also be a service if we see it that way. So it's really what I earlier when I started by saying that how we look at how we define spirituality, work, and family. So if you see this as a service that I've been entrusted with the responsibility, and it's actually an honor that I've been given the responsibility, because why Vaishnavas have been given, budding Vaishnavas have been given in our care. That means there must be some reason Krishna wants. So if you see it as a service, then we will not see that only if I come to the temple and serve khichdi on Sunday, then that's a service. But at home, I can, what I help I do, that is only a chore and not a service. So it's a matter of the consciousness. So actually, we can transform everything into a service if we see that it is pleasing other devotees, pleasing our family, and if we bring that bond, with the family, for instance, what happens is that, especially if you are the mother or the father, then the children are so much, even if they deviate in future to a little bit here and there, they'll experiment or whatever their bond with the parents will be so strong that, they may have arguments, but they will have a very deep love. So they'll think twice before they do that. And to do that is not a one-off thing. It needs slow, constant efforts and, acts of attention and kindness from the parents and love mainly. So that all that is service. So basically, our attempt to bring our children also on Krishna consciousness lines is a whole lifelong struggle. And for that struggle, it's a service. It's not a burden. And it's not like going to the temple is a service and at home it's not a service.
Actually, Prabhupada said, no, that the home is a temple and you have to create that environment at home that is like a temple.
Yes, Mataji, thank you so much. The next question is, I'm a sub-broker in stock market by profession. Whether it's considered gambling to work? If yes, how to manage it?
You might find it strange I'm connected to business, but I know very little of stock markets. I mean, we have public companies, but whatever my understanding is that if you're trading and in a daily basis, buying and selling stocks, etc., that could be on the verge of, that may be considered gambling. But I would suggest that I know people who would be able to better answer this because they have more technical understanding. My general understanding is that if our mind is looking for short-term gains or gains which are, I may get something for nothing, that kind of mentality, that is what would be defined as gambling. If we are ourselves not putting our own money, and if it is other people, and if you are a broker, and I don't know how much risk you are taking. If you're just then it may not be the ideal service, but well, there are many businesses which are, they're all shades of gray. So it may not be such a bad thing. However, I am not sure what the constant pressure of being in such an environment, for hours together, the whole environment is like frenzy and the kind of passion. I'm not able to answer that properly, but if they're interested, then they can, Ruchi Prabhu and Mataji, you have our contacts, and they can write or talk to us, and I can put them in touch with the right people who could, give a more detailed and better understanding.
Thank you, Prabhu. The next question is, can you please share your thoughts on raising children who are entering teenage life, where we start having little hold on our kids' life? How to raise them without being too pushy?
Today's generation is definitely going to be a challenge because children now want to know why. And so, Radha Priya would have her views also. I can just say that, we need to take help. We need to take counsel from right sources where people can help. Understanding them and how to understand them. Because this is, Radharani Mataji, that is Mullida Prabhu's wife. So she is now a trained psychologist. She's very good at that. And I think she's having a course on emotional well-being, probably for 8-session course. But even otherwise, it's something because they have 3 daughters and now all 3 are in their 20s. So they've just gone through that, and I've heard her speak very, very well about how to interact with teenage children. So I would strongly suggest that you get in touch with them and speak to her. That would be the best thing I can tell you. And from my point of view, Radha Priya wants to add, because I don't think I'll be able to add because now we have 6 grandchildren, so I'm past that age.
But children always, if you are if you are a friend to your child, they will want to tell you everything what they do, and you can be a best friend to your child. As he said, today's day and age, the the whole generation has changed. So here, talking about 40 years back, when we had our children small, and it was easy to bring them up, but now all children, they have, why should I do this? I'm not going to do this. So these things are.
There may be others also, but I'm aware of Radharani Mataji, whom I would strongly suggest that please do contact her. And I'm thinking in our movement we're fortunate that we have people who have a good devotional background, but also a good professional understanding and a very practical one at that.
One last question, Prabhu. What is the mantra of your success in all fields of life?
I don't know. I mean, it's a constant struggle. I think just if we find happiness in pleasing others, starting with Guru Maharaj, at least we were fortunate that we used to have Radhanath Maharaj's association personally, because that time the congregation was small, 35 years ago. Now we don't see so often, but we see other devotees who are doing such wonderful work on the ashram as well outside. So just trying to serve them, I think that's if that occupies a large shelf space of your mind, and how I can please them, then whether I'm in my office or in my home, unfortunately, Radha Priya is also the same. She has very close connection with many services in the temple. So we both have that strong desire how we can help them. So it may be direct, it can be indirect. If they're in difficulty, can we do something? If they need us, can we do something? If we don't, and if we're not needed, that's fine. So just being able to be at least on the periphery and saying, being that we can actually help if we are needed, then that's, I think, we feel contented. So that's really what we are. And we just try to see how we can please our God brothers and God sisters.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. In working environments, sometimes we have to answer diplomatically to maintain the peace, because few people can get hyper with straightforward answer. Is it right? Shall we do this to maintain the environment in the office?
Yes, definitely. We have to do it. There's no way we can, an office environment, almost by definition, is a real challenge. Challenge in a sense because today's mentality, I would say today means it's there. It's been increasing, but it's been there ever since the Industrial Revolution has started. Is such that it's a very competitive world, and whether we want to do or not, we may be, if we are very naive and think that I love people and I'm nice to them, so everyone will be nice to me, and everyone's thinking the same way I'm thinking, then we'll be in for a rude shock. So we should not change our behavior, but we should also not get fooled. Prabhupada will always say that we should not fool people, we should not cheat people, but we should also be fully aware that we don't get fooled or cheated. So while people may not cheat us, but we have to be on our guard, what we speak, how we speak, because people can, they're intelligent people around us and they could use one word here or there. So we have to be on our guard, and that adds to the stress, but that's necessary. And I don't think we should get hyper about it. It's just if you've chosen to be in that environment, we have to accept it and we get used to it. That's and as I said, then you appreciate devotees. I can say this from my own, that I appreciate even more, because then you see the straightforwardness of devotees. It's such a pleasure, when you are with those devotees, and maybe not all, but even if you find some devotees who are and over 30 years, that they're so transparent in what they say, they think, then it's such a relief to be with such people. So by being in the office environment, appreciation for transparency, simplicity, straightforwardness increases so much more that you want to help them more. So therefore, I'd say we have to be on our guard, definitely. And then over time, we get the experience, how we manage that. So it's not lying, but it's also being careful with the choice of words.
Thank you so much, Mataji and Prabhuji, for your time and guidance. You all are deeply inspiring us. Thank you.
We just said what we, from our own experience, it may apply to, may not. I don't know how much it is, but it's a subjective view in many areas, but you can just take it as you want.
Yes, surely, Prabhuji. You all are deeply inspiring us, not just by your words, but also by your example. We also look forward to having more of such webinars by all, which will help us in our Krishna conscious lives. We also thank everyone for joining us in record numbers. We will be in touch with you all for further webinars. Thank you all once again. Thank you, Mataji and Prabhuji. Our humble obeisances again unto you all.